Welcome, students of the light. This is a prelim to the next video. I believe we're up to 7. So this will be a 7A, and then we'll get into the main one later on this weekend. I actually have some time off so I can put some time into it. But I mentioned a post on Instagram about the Garden of Heaven, or the Garden of Eve, versus the Garden of Hell, which is really about creating conditions in the body that are conducive to disease states or states of disharmony, or conducive to health and well-being. So we're going to take a look at what can be done to even out the playing field to make the garden a place where healthiness takes root versus parasites and disease and weeds. We have to understand that disease just doesn't happen out of anywhere. You actually have to earn it, just like you have to earn your health. And the way the system is set up, if you're not moving towards earning your health, you're going to have a problem. Some people ask me, why are you able to teach? And the answer is, I teach because I'm a great student. And raise your hand if you put in 3 hours of study a day, right? This is daily, but this is what I like to do. So most people don't like to study 3 hours a day. To them, it's a chore. To me, I like it. You have to be disciplined. You can't be obsessive compulsive about it either. It has to kind of flow naturally. And so yeah, I can teach because I'm a great student. That's what gives me the right to teach. But we got to create the proper conditions for health. And one of the main things that I'm always harping on, if you know me, my family, people who have spoken to me for any prolonged period of time will eventually run into hydration, sunlight, and grounding. Grounding, sunlight, and water. Water, grounding, and sunlight. How many ways can I say it? The simplest of things. Do you know if you're away? Like if we're in Southern California, most people are vitamin D deficient. Don't ask me how that happens. Well, I'll get into it in the video. But if you haven't been getting a lot of sun and then you actually move or you go to vacation for over a week in an area where most of your body is now getting sun, that changes your core frequency, your core vibration, especially now that we're getting these flares from the sun that's increasing the core vibration of Earth. It also increases your core vibration, right? Which is why you have to ground, because the grounding will pull out any negative electromagnetic frequencies, all right? And you can accelerate the grounding by holding onto a tree. So barefoot on the ground, touching a tree, is the quickest way, but just barefoot, doing some breathing exercises, some qigong. Well, I'll get into that later. But I can't get into high-level metaphysics until you guys have at least looked at those three basics in depth. It just seems basic, but yet it's profound, because you can literally just through exposure to sunlight expose your frequency and your vibration. It will then affect your thinking, which will then affect your behavior. And you'll find that you're doing things, or you're stopping things, or you're adding things that are naturally healthy, because you're much more in harmony with the core frequency of the whole entire planetary system. We call it nature. So hydration, grounding, sunlight are 3 biggies when you're trying to change this from a garden of hell to the Garden of Eden. And I also like to have you begin to think in terms of the emotional garden that most of you are living in. Me included. I had to do a lot of work almost all of us are coming from dysfunctional family systems, which means coming out of the family, we are dysfunctional. Now, we are great at denial. And of course, I am not talking about a river in Africa, which, by the way, is not really Africa. It's actually called Akebulon. Another video for another day. I'll give you a little, on the main video, I'll give you a little tidbit about the history of Africa, or the Garden of Eden, or the cradle of humanity, which it was called. But it was actually called Akebulon before Africanus defeated Hannibal. But I'll get into that later. It's not really apropos to what we're talking about right now. So I posted on my Instagram channel something called The Family. And there was a few pictures in there about an adult mind, how it gets broken down, parental tapes, your thinking about who you are, and then the inner child. So keep that in mind. And this comes from a guy who I trained with, John Bradshaw. So go look up the John Bradshaw series on the family, and that'll give you a head start for those of you who want a head start on what I'm going to talk about. But the garden is a physical garden, an energetic garden, and an emotional garden. And so we have to clean up all of it. And it makes no sense to start high-level energy exercises if our chakra systems, because of emotional blocks, are blocked up. You'll either have a very difficult, unpleasant time, and hopefully, if you're doing that and you haven't done the prerequisite work, it can get through and open up those chakras. But a lot of times it doesn't. It gets stuck, and then that creates mental disorders. So, yeah, the Bradshaw and the Family is just unbelievably good, especially if you're not a trained psychotherapist. When I was in school, it was mandatory that you do psychotherapy. They wouldn't let you out on the public without knowing what your issues are, what your dysfunctions are, and having worked through it. And I had the the pleasure or the displeasure of being on display, meaning that all the residents had their therapy through a one-way mirror, which means that anyone who wanted to watch could watch. I mean, it was part of the teaching program. So, yeah, there's a lot of denial that even I was in. And once I got to clean up some of that mess, the whole practice, energy works, being able to use intuition, to understand energy, how energy works, how energy flows, light codes, et cetera, all came a lot easier. And I'm not done cleaning up. This is a lifelong process. But, it's just like a house that has to stay clean. Yeah, it gets dirty sometimes. You got to go clean it. And, so you have to have a systematic process of how you're going to clean your house, just like you have the systematic process of how you're going to clean your energetic system, your emotional system, and your bodily systems. And so I think I'll get off of that. But yeah, I really can't emphasize Bradshaw, this guy, and especially if you're not clued into, high-level terms of psychotherapy, which most of us are not. But if you ever run yourself into a problem and you're like, what should I do? I got this person bothering me. This relationship is not working out. I'm not really happy. I'm kind of angry most of the time, or there's an inner disharmony, even chronic anxiety. The relationships I'm getting involved into, and I'm talking about, they could be romantic relationships, work relationships, job relationships, career relationships. It's like you're bringing in the wrong people, or the wrong people are coming to you. Well, the universe is trying to teach you a lesson, but at the same time, what is the lesson that it's saying? It's saying, look within, go fix yourself, go look at your family, go look at the family dysfunction that you're either currently involved in or came from, and you're going to have to work that out. Then everything else flows. So I'll sit there and I'll listen. I mean, I was in the hospital just yesterday, listening. And I said, are you done? And are you ready to take a deep dive into the dark waters of your own emotional hell? And in 5 minutes of me doing that with them, they're in tears, they're crying, but it's, you know, it's a good pain because it's a release. And so that's where we have to go. So Bradshaw and the family, hydration, grounding, sunlight, which if you want to, without doing any type of metaphysical work, just a constant daily exposure to sunlight can radically change you and radically change how you think and perceive things. And if you clean up emotionally, again, Bradshaw and the family, please go get a head start on that. I'll bring up some salient features, especially as regards to the inner child issues. And is there anything else that's going to be coming up? We'll talk about dysfunctional people getting together, forming dysfunctional relationships, and therefore dysfunctional family systems. And what that's like, because a lot of us come from dysfunctional families, and so the thinking is, okay, you've been in denial, but you know there was problems in the family, but you're used to it. You grew up in it, so you don't know how devastating it could be. Then you go meet somebody, and it seems like everything is, going well. But he is likely dysfunctional unless he's actually worked on it. And if he has, then he should be telling you that. And he should be telling you to work on yours. So now you have two dysfunctions. Do the math. Dysfunction plus dysfunction equals what? Dysfunction. But your goal was to come together, both of you, to work out your trauma or your emotional family dysfunction by creating a functional family, which you will not be able to do. I guarantee it. I don't care how much you love your kids. I don't care how much you love your man. I don't care how much you value family. There is a mathematical equation. Dysfunction plus dysfunction equals dysfunction. And eventually it will play out. I'm 13 minutes into the video, so I'm going to stop. And I'll put the B part of this video out where we get into more detail about the Garden of Eden and the Garden of Hell. In the meantime, everybody have a good, this is the weekend, so have a good weekend. Just have a good day. Have a good life. I wish that everybody gets to the point of achieving their full potential, which is one of the reasons why I'm back teaching again, is because a lot of you have a ton of unrealized potential, but because your self-esteem is low, your sense of value is low, and you don't even know that it's low, you're not going to execute the soul's plan. Bottom line. Bye now.